So first off, what we have news in camp for this summer is we have the chapel area. It's been refurbished. It looks awesome. There is a new pavilion up in the Trailwood campsite that was ready for last year, but unfortunately we didn't have camp last year. So we're looking forward to making use of that. And in addition to that, we also have some staff cabins that have been built that for use for our staff during the summer, but also for the camp as a whole all year round. If you guys have questions as I make the presentation, feel free to drop them in the chat. Hopefully we'll get to all of them. So you can either wait till the end or drop them in the chat as you think of them. I am going to wait until the end to address them though. So just keep that in mind. First of all, I want to preface everything we're going to share tonight by saying that everything we say is sort of subject to change. We are, as a camping committee, keeping a very close eye on the developments from the PA Department of Health and the CDC, and we're taking everything that they say under consideration. And what I'm presenting tonight is a version of summer camp that would work under the current restrictions. And if those restrictions let up and we're able to provide something a little more close to what a normal summer camp experience would look like, we're going to try to do that. So, so maybe those guidelines at camp will also let up. But summer camp this summer is going to be different, but we're going to make the best of it and have as much fun as we can. Let's move on here. Couple things we are still in the process of working through. We're going to get those out of the way right off the bat. Our campfires, those large group gatherings for the whole camp gathers in one place. We're not sure how those are going to work just yet. We have a couple ideas. We're still working through that. We don't know what our tubing on the Lehigh River is going to look like as of yet. We're hoping to do it at least for maybe smaller groups, or like I said, we're not sure what the feasibility of that is going to look like. We recently introduced the air pellet program for our We Below scouts at the shooting range. Based on how we are organizing, and we'll get into this in a bit, based on how we're organizing our dens, not sure if that's going to work out the way it has in the past either. Our climbing wall, and as well as specific program capacities, like the den size and other camp-wide activities like we would sort of sometimes have with our evening program. Not sure if we're going to be able to pull any of those off. So what we do know is what you all already know. We are going to have to work together as adult leaders at Camp Acahela to keep each other safe and make sure that the guidelines that our camping committee and our medical professionals that we've been consulting with have put into place are being followed. We have to stay flexible because all this information is going to change. It could, we're not sure. We are going to be employing the use of masks while at summer camp, social distancing whenever possible. We're going to make sure that frequent hand washing and sanitizing is available, as well as schedule into our program extra time for sanitation and to make sure that all of our facilities are properly cleaned. Finally, the screening to make sure that nobody's bringing something into camp. Obviously, we're not going to. We are going to try to catch everything, but we can't eliminate the risk. But we're going to have a screening process that occurs before, on arrival, and throughout the week at camp. But we are not requiring vaccines in any way, shape, or form. So some things we can say with certainty. There is not going to be a family night on Tuesday night for our adventure campers. They will be picked up by their families, but there's not going to be a big to-do as we normally have that night. We're going to try to limit the amount of coming and going into the camp. I know sometimes at Goose Pond, sometimes at Acahela, you'd have parents, adult leaders. who go to work during the day and spend their evenings with us. That coming and going isn't really going to be possible this year. We're not saying, and we're not outlawing the practice where, you'd have one person stay for the first half of the week, one person for the second. But that person who's showing up for the second half of the week would have to do their clearance, their screening ahead of time, just as anybody who's coming into camp is going to have to do that. We are going to post those screenings and the operations and sort of the guidelines by which we are determining COVID risk soon onto our website. Our health and safety team met yesterday and started pulling that stuff together. We have a good idea of what that's going to look like, but nothing published yet. And what I said before, camp's going to look a little bit differently. A little bit different this year. Normally, the scouts would be placed into dens based on their age group. In order to sort of mitigate some of the risk associated with people coming from all different parts of camp and congregating in one area, we are going to have almost a bubble from individual campsites move around to our program areas. So that's going to mean your Webelos don't necessarily travel together, but the scouts in your den do travel together. So you could have Webelos, bears, wolves, all of them. But they're all going to come from the same place, go to the same place, rather than mixing up and going to all the different program areas. We are right now working with the understanding that we are only going to be able to have one person per tent, and that is going to reduce the capacity of camp. Me and Brian don't think it's going to affect people being able to go as of yet, but especially with the capability in Cub Scout program for parents to stay with their youth or siblings to stay together from the same household. That might be a strategy that we're employing as we try to fill our campsites. But we're going to try to limit the sign-ins and outs of camp. Meals will be, as of right now, in the campsites, and we're going to employ a couple different strategies on how we're going to do that. Haven't fully decided just yet, but we can go over some of those. And the camp-wide activities that we would normally have in the evening are going to be limited. We're also going to, rather than the mass horde of people showing up on Sunday to check in, we're going to attempt to have dedicated sign-in times, especially with how our sign-in system is going to work this year. A lot of the, sorry, I've been talking a bit. A lot of the check-in process will take place before you've even entered the camp. It'll take place in the parking lot. And so with all of that activity in the parking lot, we're going to try to sort of have a variable start time and have people roll into camp over time. So all that said, camp is going to be looking very different this year, but we are going to have it. We're going to make it work. I'm going to start off by showing, I mentioned before we had a altered program schedule to sort of deal with all of our changes this year. And so this is what our Sunday looks like so far. Arrival, we're going to do evening colors in the parade field. There will be dinner that'll most likely take place in the campsites, as I said. We're still going to employ the leaders meeting. Not sure what that's going to look like just yet. Like I said, we're not sure what the opening program is going to look like either, but then we'll have taps and lights out. Sunday's pretty straightforward, pretty similar to what we have always done. Where it gets a little bit weird is during our weekdays. And so we're going to have our morning colors, same time as usual, but then breakfast will be in the campsite. Morning colors, so I should say, are probably also going to be in the campsite, put on by the adult leaders and with staff assistance, potentially. Then we'll have 2 sessions in the morning as opposed to the normal 3. And you'll notice there's a little bit more time built into the schedule for those sessions. The program time is going to be the same as it has always been, but it's going to give our staff a little bit of extra time in between those sessions to sanitize the stations, make sure everything is prepped and ready and clean for the next group to come through. Then we'll do lunch, we'll have our afternoon rest, then we'll have 3 sessions in the afternoon. Normally we'd have 3 sessions, one of them being our open program. But our open program, as you may or may not know, has people from all over the camp going to all different other places all over the camp. And we're going to want to try to, and it would be impossible to contact trace anybody in that kind of situation. So we're going to instead take that and move it and make that sort of a kind of, or going to those open programs, a kind of evening activity. Not to say that people are going to mixing up their dens, but those special activities, those things that you do in the program area that you wouldn't do in a normal session, the extra fun activities, that's when that'll happen in the evening with our evening open program as on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, as you can see there. Thursday, during that time slot, will be our closing campfire and lights out there. And then our Friday schedule gets moved up a little bit here. So in order to prep the camp for the next week, make sure everything is cleaned and ready, that includes sanitizing the cots and the tents and everything. The departure time for camp has been moved up a little bit to noon. So your Friday activities are going to include breakfast, one last open program at our open program sessions, your time to clean up, and then departure from there. A couple other things to note about the program schedule. So morning and evening colors are going to be conducted by the pack with the staff assistants, like I said. Meals are served in campsites. The Scout Zone service on Tuesday evening is going to be a program that's made up by our staff and provided to the scouts and the adult leaders in the campsites to do on their own time, probably during that Tuesday night time slot. Like I said, the program session said, I have said a bunch of this stuff already, but the actual program time will not change. The Arrow of Light overnight is an important part for a lot of our Arrow of Light important part of camp for a lot of our Arrow of Light scouts, and we are going to still do that. It's going to be an optional activity. Obviously, congregating with the other Arrow of Light scouts might not be an activity that their parents want them to partake in, but they will be spread out during the campfire that we traditionally have, and they won't be sharing a tent. Each scout will be required to bring and pitch their own tent. So we think that that's an activity that we can pull off safely. The closing campfire, like we said, we're not going to congregate, but the awards will be provided to the scouts in their campsite on Thursday night. The staff will rotate in and out to present those. And finally, an important detail, everyone should bring a camp chair if they have one. And if you don't have one, you might want to get one, because in order to maintain social distancing at a lot of our program areas, we're going to want to try to use those, hopefully have some of our scouts carry them with them. So a light chair might even be advised. But in order to, we don't have enough picnic benches for people to make that distancing possible. And so those are going to be a hot commodity at camp this summer. This is stuff that it has not changed, but the requirements for leadership is going to be, you need 2 deep leadership at least. For the female units, there needs to be at least 1 female leader. Any adult who spends more than 72 hours, even if they're non-consecutive, in the camp has to be registered with the BSA and have their YPT training complete. And all adult leaders who come to camp must have current youth protection training completed BSA medical form, their clearances, and also their checklist, their COVID checklist, and temperature checks prior to arrival as well. That's not on there. But this unit leadership plays an important part at camp because they are responsible for the supervision of our youth. So we want to make sure that they are properly trained and fully ready for that. These are the fees for the summer camp season this summer. So the 2021 fee schedule is up there for the campers, the adventure campers, the additional leaders, and the additional leaders for resident camp and the adventure leaders. And there's different prices if you pay before May 15th and after May 15th. Anybody who contacted, I believe it was Brian, by the date requested to roll over their camp fees from last year, that price is not going to raise on you. You can use the 2020 fee schedule that's beneath there. If you have any questions about that, send us an email. But whether you had that in time or not. But that is what our fee schedules are looking like right now. And if you're scared by all these numbers, all of this information is going to be on our website after this, hopefully by later this week, as well as a recording of this presentation. So we'll move on here. The leader fees, we provide a couple free leaders for each unit, with additional free leaders for every 7 scouts after the first 7. So if you have 2 to 6 scouts, you get 1 free leader. 7 to 22, you can see there. And additional leaders are listed on that price schedule on the slide before, $125 each, or $145 after May 15th. Or if you do them by the day, if it's like an adventure camp thing, it's going to be $28 per day. We have our refund policy, which is valuable information this year, especially with COVID. The first $50 of each camper fee is not refundable and not transferable. This deposit is completely forfeited if the scout does not attend camp. Other fees paid prior to camp are generally transferable to other new or add-on scouts in the unit, but not refundable. Once the camp week has begun, fees are not refundable. In cases involving extreme circumstances, medical issue, any of those there, requests for refund can be made in writing, accompanied by appropriate documentation by September 1st. But we do have a couple updates to this refund policy for this year for the COVID-19 related refunds. Government regulations requiring the camp to be closed and or travel restrictions that allow you to not come to camp will result in a refund of 100% of the fees paid. This includes if NEPA Council decides that camp must close this summer once again. There will be a full refund. Individuals testing positive or forced to quarantine due to a known exposure within 2 weeks prior to the arrival, or those sent home during check-in due to COVID-19 concerns will be refunded 100% of fees paid less $50 deposit. So that's our updated refund policy for 2021. We also have camperships available. They're available from the NEPA for scouts from the NEPA Council. Forms for that are available online or at the service center, and those are due May 1st. So our check-in process. Troop leaders will be expected to collect the health forms and the COVID waivers, as well as the COVID checklist. I'm blanking on the word, but the checklist and the temperature checks to make sure you're clear of symptoms beforehand, and show up with those at your variable start time. We are discouraging people from carpooling with folks who are not in the same household, if at all possible, and masks should be worn while in the car. if not. But we're also asking you to arrive as a group to the best of your ability. We're asking a lot with that, but it's an extraordinary year. And so we're going to try to get everybody to camp as safely as possible. So the process right now is going to look like a health screening in the parking lot, almost like a drive-through. And that's when our sort of bubble system is going to start. Parents will drop off their scouts and turn around, and the scouts will be allowed to enter camp. We'll do a medical recheck, and that's where the individual scouts will do all their medicine turn-ins and all of that information. Our swim check, not fully sure how the schedule on that's going to work just yet, but we're working on it. And we're also going to have a little bit of training and orientation to go around for our scouts as well as our adult leaders. This next stuff is not new to you, but all youth and adults must have a medical form, a BSA medical form parts A, B, and C. That part C is what requires the doctor's, the physical. We also ask you to bring a photocopy of your insurance card front and back and attach that to your medical form as well. Last year, if you did any camping, you'll know that the part C part of our medical form, the BSA National extended that to a term of 18 months. So if you had it in the last 18 months, you were good to go camping. This year, that is not a possibility. And so you will need that part C within the last 12 months prior to your arrival to camp. If you have been vaccinated, we ask that you note that on your medical form. If you are exposed to any sort of coronavirus while at camp, that might play a part in our decision making as to the spread and everything. So, the more information we have, the better. If you can note that on medical forms as well, that'd be great. There will be a pre-camp health monitoring process for 10 days prior. Like I said, that's going to include a checklist to make sure you have none of the symptoms. And temperature checks for the 10 days prior to arrival. And those are going to continue, whether that be in a paper form or an electronic, we're not sure yet, once you're at camp. We're asking the adult leaders of the unit to take responsibility for that and record it. And as well as the COVID waiver, when you arrive, we'll need to bring that and those daily health checks. We're going to talk about food, everybody's favorite part. So the meals this summer, as of right now, are going to be served in the campsite. We're going to hopefully try to employ a couple of the leaders who show up to have a little bit of training and help us with safely serving the stuff. But the eating itself will be distanced. There's not going to be any of this self-service food, salad bars, anything that's grab and go. We can't do that. It needs to be served by somebody who's properly masked, properly trained, and then handed to the scouts. So they're either going to be boxed, they're going to be served, and they're going to be at the campsites. Or if in the case of boxed, we might do something where it's a designated site like the dining hall or down the bottom of the hill. Like I said, not entirely sure how food's going to work, but we have a lot of ideas kicking around, and hopefully we can do this safely. Leadership, we are asking the leaders this year to help chip in and keep everybody healthy and safe. We're going to ask you potentially to help serve meals, to help keep your latrine sanitized, make sure that our scouts are adhering to the mask wearing rules that we've set, as well as their social distancing, sanitization, etc. As well, also that sleeping arrangements are not being changed around. We'll need all the cooperation and help that we can get from our adult leaders to make sure that our scouts are safe and that we can make this a great summer. We went over a couple of these before, but any of these items here that you have and you are willing to bring, you should. The extra personal tents will definitely help. Once we have our registration set and we've started putting people into campsites, if we need units to bring tents to have that one person per tent and fit you all in a campsite, we will let you know. But keep in mind, we might be asking some units to bring personal tents to set up to make camping possible this summer. Since we're doing meals in a campsite, that's going to mean we're going to need a little bit of shelter. So if you have those pop-up canopies or the carports, extra ones that your troop has or that your pack has that you can borrow, that's great. A little bit of extra shelter from the elements is a great thing. Bring your own camp chair. I mentioned that one before. If you have sanitizing products, extra masks, hand soap, the more of that stuff we have kicking around, the better. And if you have a digital thermometer or however you call it, the temperature gun, contactless thermometer, that'll also help get through the daily temperature checks a little bit faster than if you have each scout walking up to the same one. Now it's my turn to do a little bit of promo for our camp staff. If you or anyone you know wants a job this summer, camp staff is an awesome opportunity. It is a job that definitely cultivates the best in young people, leadership skills, personal growth, communication with others, problem solving, and a lot more. We are accepting applications for counselors in training from 14 or 15-year-olds and for paid staff positions from 15 and up. We're interviewing now, and you can find the information for that at nep@bsa.org/employment opportunities. We are going to have another meeting. We're tentatively setting that for May 4th. So watch your email. We'll have more details about that coming out soon. Any questions, concerns, or anything that you have about this, feel free to reach out to me, david.oley@scouting.org, or at the Acahela email address. That's acahela@nepabsa.org. These are the websites where we have some updated information already put up, and we're hoping to have this video as well as my presentation slides up there as well soon, later this week. And we'll see you again soon. I'm going to hop over to the comments section and see if we've got questions here. And if you've got questions now, feel free to pop those in the chat. Den chiefs will be charged as a leader. Oh, Phil Arbog already got that.
I think Brian and I got most of the questions from the.
Oh, you guys are doing my job for me. That's wonderful.
With the exception of possibly the last one, the camp-wide tubing.
I'm starting to write a response to that one. Basically with the tubing, first of all, for all of you, just so you know, we have a very active camping committee that's been working for the past couple of months on investigating what we can and can't do and trying to prepare for camp. We have over 30 very dedicated volunteers, along with Dave and David, working on this. And so the discussion on the tubing, like boating too, but the tubing's even more, is a question about, number one, sanitation. How do we clean the life vests in between scouts going down? The other is that because of the close contact between the scouts themselves on the river and also with the staff at the put in and the takeout point, especially, The first blush answer from our risk management committee was they'd have to wear masks. Well, the issue with that is masks don't work once they're wet. So we've been investigating it and trying to figure out what to do with it. It probably will not be the camp-wide activity that we've had in the past, but we do know that it's kind of one of the highlights of the Scouts, especially if they're in their last year. So even if we can't do it for the whole camp, we're trying to figure out if we can do it at least for the Arrow of Light Scouts. Probably in that open program time period on Friday morning. The issue with that is, as you know from the past, it takes a lot of our staff in order to run that program. And if we're running other open program areas, we may not have the staff to do the tubing. So all of this is still one of those things that's in flux, it's under consideration, it's under discussion, knowing full well that it's something that Scouts really like, knowing that it's something we would like to provide because it's unique to Camp Acahela. But there's some issues with it under the environment we're currently working on. I want to go into a little bit more detail on the food questions. I answered them, by writing, but most of you know that we were part of a special program in 2019 that the Boy Scouts of America started called Revamp Camp, which is basically a healthy foods initiative. So we revamped our menus. We provided a lot more fruit, a lot more vegetables. We eliminated bug juice during some of the meals to get rid of the sugar, as you all know. We want to continue with that program. It was very, very successful. It was very well received. We were noted by Penn State University of one of the best Scout camps that has instituted that program so far. So we're looking at our menus. The idea is to serve them hot, to answer that question. Part of the reason for needing the leaders to help serve is we need to serve that fairly quickly. The current thinking is that there might be a couple of staff members assigned to your pack campsite bubble. When I say pack, if it has to deal with the campsite, as you know, sometimes there's more than one pack in a campsite. So it's a campsite bubble. So some leaders from the campsite and a couple of staff members will all be trained in how to serve the food safely. And it's not just masks, it's also gloves and portion sizing and all this kind of stuff. So a couple of staff members will help you serve the food. They'll probably eat with you too. It hasn't been determined yet, but the staff will probably be spread throughout camp since we aren't really using the dining hall. Be menus that are very, very similar. My first blush through the menus that we had in 2019, most of what we had will probably work. There may be a couple of instances with lunches that we might want to trade. For example, tacos would be very difficult to serve under this kind of an environment. So that might be a hoagie or something instead, a cold hoagie sandwich. But we plan on still having pretty full menus. It's not going to be peanut butter and jelly all the time. But as Dave said, we obviously can't do a salad bar. There may be some times where you get a salad that's just a standard, straight salad, put it on a plate. That's what you get, or it comes in a styrofoam container, something like that. Probably with different salad dressing packets of dressing, instead of big bottles that you can put on. So it's going to be a lot of that type of condiment service. We're debating, there's options even on whether everything has to be put in styrofoam containers and served individually. I don't like that because there's a lot of waste, especially with these Cub Scouts. If you give them a standard plate, there's a lot of stuff on it that they won't eat. And so one of the ways we're able to keep food costs down and provide the variety we have is by minimizing that wastage through what's usually a cafeteria style serving. Originally, when we started the camping committee, it was going to end up being in styrofoam containers. You're served a container and that's it. And the difficulty I have with that is we've been known to provide lots of seconds and stuff, especially for the adults who want more food. So you're able to get what you want. Under the styrofoam container, you get one container, that's it. Under a cafeteria style, we usually have quantities that you can come back through the line. There's now been the option opened up that if we provide plates in a container that's sealed down to the site, and if we have trained people properly geared up, properly serving the plates and filling them, we might be able to do the cafeteria style serving in the campsite. So that's what we're really looking at. In my opinion, that provides better customer service like we have been doing at Camp Acahela. The question on the allergies, we are going to try to continue to take care of allergies. In the text, I reminded you though that there is an allergy form, and anyone who has allergies or special food needs that are required because of either dietary or religious reasons, they need to fill out that form. That needs to be given to the camp. I think it's 2 weeks prior to your arrival, because we've got to plan for that well ahead of time. We've got to purchase special foods. You know, it doesn't come in the big Cisco truck in a big, huge case. We have to run to the grocery store and buy individual stuff in many cases. So there's a part that you leaders have to do, and that is plan ahead for those in your unit that have allergies and special dietary needs, and make sure they fill out that form. By the way, don't know what we're going to do about the peanut butter and jelly situation. We haven't even discussed that yet in the camping committee, but if we do still offer some kind of option like that, the sun butter, I'll give you the feedback from 2019. The sun butter option worked extremely well, and it eliminated the whole peanut allergy issue completely. And we eliminated all other nuts in our food, and we will again this year. So nut allergies, they can put it on the food, on the allergy form, but you're just wasting your time, because we're not going to have any nuts that would cause allergy, other than the ones that you bring into your campsite. And I don't mean the ones that are on trees, I mean the people. But anyway, so I think that's it on the food. Anything else?
There were a couple other questions in chat. In the event of rain, that is a challenge that we are trying to sort of come up with a solution to right now. Best we have right now is each campsite has a pavilion. If you need more shelter for the scouts in your camp, we're asking that you bring some of those pop-up shelters or what have you to provide enough shelter from the rain as best you can. It's definitely a challenge we're facing with this type of serving. The non-regulated areas that are non-regulated in a normal year, will there be designated times? I don't know if we have designated times, but all of our showers at Acahela are individual stalls, so there shouldn't be an issue with that. But we're going to make sure that those are sanitized often, and they will be. We are going to have a set schedule, I think. I don't know if that's out yet or has been created yet, but there's going to be set times where the shower houses are closed for cleaning, and then other times when they are open to be used. As far as the trading post, I believe that's going to be open as usual, but we might just be allowing one campsite bubble or one den or troop or sorry, pack of bubble into the building at a time. And there's obviously going to be a barrier between the cashier and the rest of the store there. Parent and pal camps, not entirely sure about Parent and Pal, but we are working right now on getting together the day camp for Lackawanna. More news to come on that. We're going to have our normal water coolers in the stations. I believe right now the idea is that an adult leader or a staff member will be the one to dispense the water, and the water bottles be held a foot below. At least that's something that I saw work pretty well in the past. Any follow-up questions to that?
Water bottles can be filled up at the campsites. You know, they have hose bibs at all the latrines. There's also hose bibs at certain locations in some of the program areas that you can fill water bottles up in. I've always gotten a chuckle out of the people that try to sneak up to the drink machine in the dining hall to fill up their water bottles, thinking that it's something extra special, seltzer water, special mineral water or something. I got news for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's the very same water that comes out of the spigot at the campsite. So it's all the same water in camp. It is what it is.
Brian, it's colder.
No, it's not.
I did just want to mention one thing, regarding the showers and things like that. This is definitely an area where unit leaders are definitely going to be helpful in making sure that your scouts are not congregating in the hallway, in the shower hall, or in the shower house and things like that, or in any area, especially when other people are trying to get in to use those facilities. So.
For sure.
I love Britt's question.
Yeah,
David.
I know. Believe it or not, I think we did talk about that.
We did.
There was discussion of providing it in. I don't know if we came up with a solution or not, but there was discussion of providing it in campsites or having a centralized location where we could provide coffee for our valued adult leaders. All right. Well, if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to us via email or just have them stocked away in your brain for our next meeting. Like I said, that's going to be coming up in about a month here. So we'll post this information. And thank you all for
David.
Yeah.
David, just one or two quick things.
Yeah, go for it.
Before we leave. There were some people who joined after we talked about signing in the chat, giving us your name and your PAC number.
Thank you.
So that we know your PAC was represented. So if you did not sign in, please go to the chat section and just type in your name and what PAC number you're from. The other thing I wanted to quickly mention is most of the forms and things have been inserted, and information has been updated on our regular council website page for Camp Acahela Resident Camp. So for example, you can find the t-shirt form there already. You can find the roster forms. You can find all that kind of stuff. There's a couple of things that are missing. And the biggest one, of course, is the leader's guide, because it's a work in process and we haven't made all the decisions yet to print into it. We're working on it. We hope to have it available before our next Zoom meeting. There was something else too.
Oh, sorry. This is the page you're looking for, and it's the link that I posted in the chat a little bit higher up. And there's a bunch of forms down here at the bottom.
Yeah, I can't remember what the other thing was, so forget it.
Andrew, I will make sure I'll address that when I get to the office tomorrow.
Somebody just wrote in a question about some of the files are not accessible. Those are, if you've looked in the last week and you've had that, those are the 2 or 3 things yet that probably have not been inserted and updated. You should be able to click on everything else.
Okay.